He kissed his mistress for a dare, laughed when I shattered, and when I vanished without a word, he thought I'd come crawling back. Instead, I built a new life. One where silence wasn't punishment, it was power. Now he's on his knees, ring in hand, begging for another chance. But I've already chosen the man who never needed to break me to love me. If I could pinpoint the exact moment I fell out of love with Grayson Hale, it was when he kissed Lena Carter right in front of me, for 3 minutes, and called it a favor. It happened at a lake house party. One of those young elite getaways with designer fire pits, a fridge full of overpriced liquor, and people who measured fun by the number of scandals created before sunrise. Grayson was in his element, polished, confident, detached. The kind of man who looked like he belonged in magazine ads for luxury wristwatches and unearned arrogance. I used to think that aloofness was part of his charm. I didn't think I'd be proven wrong so thoroughly. The game started off playfully, truth or dare. Predictably chaotic. There were shrieks when someone had to reveal their body count, groans when someone drank vinegar, giggles over a topless dive into the lake. Then Lena's turn came. I should have seen it coming. From the moment she arrived, wearing that slinky silk slip dress and acting as though the house, the drinks and Grayson were hers. I choose dare, she purred. That smirk. That tone. The boys leaned in. Someone, probably Blaine, always the instigator, grinned like a devil. All right, Lena. Kiss a guy of your choice for 3 minutes. Real kiss. Or take the penalty. The room oohed. I rolled my eyes. She batted her lashes. Penalty. Post your worst selfie to every contact in your phone. Even your CO. Lena pouted dramatically. Ugh, you guys are evil. Then she turned, paused, smiled, and said, I pick Grayson. My stomach clenched. Everyone hooped. Ooh. Grayson sat up a little straighter beside me. I waited for him to laugh, say no, point to me and say, sorry, taken. That he stood. No hesitation. I turned to him. Grayson, I whispered. Seriously. She'll lose her job, he said flatly, as if he were helping a drowning child, not his ex-girlfriend who still flirted with him in front of me at every opportunity. Just a game, someone chirped. The timer started. Lena stepped forward, cupped his jaw like they were lovers reunited after war, and kissed him. The room exploded in cheers and laughter. I felt the blood drain from my face. They kissed. And kissed. And kissed. 3 minutes had never felt longer. He didn't even try to fake discomfort. His arms went around her waist eventually. I caught the slight upward twitch at the corner of his mouth. When the timer beeped, they pulled away slowly, eyes still locked. Everyone clapped. I stood. The wine glass in my hand slipped and shattered on the hardwood floor. The room silenced. Grayson turned to me. His expression unreadable. You really did that, I said, my voice trembling. She didn't want the penalty, he said, like that explained everything. In front of me? On my face. It was just a kiss. My throat closed. Do you remember I'm your girlfriend? He didn't respond. I walked up to him, shaking. You could have said no. Still silence. Say something, I demanded. Anything. Grayson finally blinked. Then, in the coldest voice I'd ever heard from him, he said, Are you done crying? The silence was so sharp it could have slit my wrists. People looked away awkwardly. Lena smiled. Grayson didn't flinch. And then, because the universe doesn't run out of cruelty, he turned to Lena and asked, Want me to drive you home? She nodded. And without looking back once, he walked out the door with her. I walked outside without speaking to anyone. The sky had turned a heavy gray. Within minutes, the rain came. First a mist, then a full downpour. I stood in it. No umbrella. No jacket. Just me, soaked and shaking, staring at nothing, listening to the laughter echo from inside. I watched couples stroll past under shared umbrellas, heard one girl giggle as her boyfriend kissed her nose. That was supposed to be me tonight. My heart cracked clean in half. Not from the kiss, not even from Lena, but from how little I seemed to matter when it counted. It was in that moment I made the quietest, strongest decision of my life. I would never message Grayson Hale again. Not to scream. Not to beg. Not even to say goodbye. I didn't block him. I didn't make a scene. I simply vanished. Let him feel the silence he always gave me. 3 months passed. It's funny how grief doesn't feel like fire. Not always. Sometimes it's just fog. Heavy, clinging fog that settles behind your ribs and makes even joy feel muffled. I didn't call Grayson. Didn't text him. I deleted our photos from my phone and my cloud. I didn't block his number. That would have given him too much importance. I simply let him fade. I was quieter at work. I took more meetings, earned more silence in the boardroom with my answers. I bought a new coat. I moved my things to the left side of the closet. I filled the space he left with cleaner lines and colder coffee. Thought I was healing. Until one morning my mother burst into my room holding a hanger and a pair of heels. "Wear this," she said. I stared at the cream-colored Chanel dress. "Why?" "You're going to dinner." "I'm not hungry." She raised a brow. "You've been avoiding real food and real men for 3 months. Men don't digest well. Especially when undercooked." She sighed dramatically, waving the hanger in front of my face. "Just go. We'll like him. He's already waiting. Don't make me explain why you ghosted a perfectly good boy." I opened my mouth to argue, but she raised one finger. The finger of final decisions, and I gave up. An hour later, I found myself stepping into the private dining room of a rooftop restaurant called The Address. Too pretentious for my taste, too quiet for hers. I told myself I'd make it quick. Be polite. Leave before dessert. But the moment I stepped through the door, I froze. The man sitting inside looked familiar. Casual white sweatshirt. Rolled sleeves. Tousled dark hair. He wasn't classically dressed for a blind date, but then again neither was I. He looked up from the menu, eyes locking onto mine with a flicker of recognition. His smile widened. "Camilla?" he asked. My stomach dropped. Jace Morgan. A memory surfaced, blurred by time but not forgotten. He was 18, staying with us for the summer. My mother had taken him in as a favor to her best friend Vera, who swore he was just a little lost. Back then Jace was all chaos. Black stud in his ear, motorcycle boots on my Persian rug, and a constant air of rebellion. At 20, I was already interning at a legal firm, busy with mock trials and Excel sheets. I'd written him off as a phase wearing leather. But now he was something else. His features had sharpened. There was definition in his jaw, strength in the curve of his shoulders. The mischievous glint in his eyes had mellowed, not gone, just matured. "You remember me," he said, standing to pull out my chair. I sat slowly. "You've changed." He grinned. "You haven't." "That's not true," I said quietly. "No," he replied, sitting again. "You've just become quieter. But I remember the fire." Dinner arrived faster than I expected, and so did the conversation. At first it was awkward. We danced around small talk, skirting names we both recognized. He told me he'd graduated early, moved into renewable energy investments, now consulting part-time for his uncle's firm. I told him about my promotion, about finally moving to the West Tower, about how silence in courtrooms had started to feel like home. Somewhere between the lobster ravioli and the second glass of wine, the awkwardness melted. "You really asked your mom to set this up?" Asked finally. He tilted his head. "I did." "Why?" "Because I heard you broke up with your boyfriend." My spine stiffened. "So you figured I was on clearance?" He laughed, unbothered. "No. I figured you might finally see me." His boldness was unexpected and disarming. "You were a reckless teenager who threw rocks at streetlights and got into fights at gas stations. And now I have health insurance and bake sourdough on Sundays," he replied with a wink. I couldn't help it. I laughed. After dinner he offered to drive me home. I said no, but he insisted. I figured one car ride wouldn't hurt. Until it did. Because somewhere in the middle of our drive, I reached to unbuckle my seatbelt and the clasp jammed. I leaned forward, tugging. He leaned in to help. And then I moved too quickly, too carelessly, and slammed right into his face. My chest. His cheekbone. We both froze. "Oh my God," I breathed. "I'm so sorry." "It's okay," he said, his voice tight. I pulled back, flustered, hands trembling slightly as I fumbled for the handle. But in my rush to escape, I misjudged the step and tripped, right onto him. This time we landed on the sidewalk. Him beneath me, my hands on his chest. His breath warm against my collarbone. We didn't move. For a long second we just stared. And then, because embarrassment is cruel, I heard a familiar voice gasp. "Camilla." I turned my head and saw my mother. Next to her Vera. Jace's mother. Wonderful. Well, Vera said, lips twitching with amusement. This escalated quickly. My mother raised an eyebrow. You're progressing faster than your high school essays, Camilla. I tripped, I muttered, scrambling off Jace. He stood up beside me, brushing off his sleeves. She fell for me, he deadpanned. Vera laughed. So is this official? I opened my mouth to say absolutely not, but Jace beat me to it. He turned to me, leaned in and whispered, just go with it for a second. Please. Then louder, that was my first kiss. My jaw dropped. I wanted to deny it. I wanted to correct everything. But their eyes were on me, amused, expectant, thrilled. So I nodded. Once. And just like that, the entire world shifted. That night, as I changed into pajamas and stared at my reflection, I saw it. The tiniest flicker of something I hadn't felt in months. A spark. Not of love. Not yet. But of potential. There was something quietly dangerous about comfort. The way it slips in unnoticed, softens your guard and whispers, you're safe now. That's what it felt like with Jace Morgan. The days after the kiss incident, if we can even call that clumsy sidewalk collision a kiss, passed with a surreal kind of stillness. I expected awkward distance or at least a pause from him, but instead Jace did the opposite. He texted the next morning. Jace, I have a theory. You tripped on purpose so I'd catch you. Me, I have a theory you're delusional. Jace, we can test both over brunch? And just like that we started seeing each other. Not dating. Not officially. But existing together in the space where two people linger before definitions. He picked me up for coffee the next Saturday, said nothing about my outfit, but kept sneaking glances when he thought I wasn't looking. I wore flats on purpose. No more dramatic falls. We went hiking the next weekend. He packed peanut butter sandwiches and orange slices like a child on a field trip. We got caught in the rain. He tried to shield me with his hoodie. I let him. Each moment with Jace felt gentle. Not dazzling, not cinematic. Just easy. Like exhaling after a long-held breath. One night we ended up in an arcade. It wasn't planned. We were driving past it after dinner and I muttered something about needing to hit something. Jace immediately pulled in and dragged me to the boxing game. He missed the first punch completely. I laughed so hard I nearly choked. You're terrible, I teased. Says the woman who tripped over a seatbelt. He shot back, grinning. We stayed until midnight. Competing in skee-ball, sharing greasy nachos, and laughing like kids who'd never had their hearts broken. At one point I caught him looking at me, that same steady, unreadable gaze. What? I asked. Nothing, he said. Just, you smile differently when you forget who you used to be. I didn't respond. But I thought about that all night. The shift came slowly. It was in the way he walked on the traffic side of the street. The way he peeled shrimp for me at dinner without asking. The way he remembered I hated mint chocolate, and picked it out of every mixed candy bag he brought. Grayson had once said affection wasn't his language. Jace made affection a dialect he spoke fluently. Then came the afternoon at the bookstore. I had mentioned offhand that I'd lost my annotated copy of Wuthering Heights, an edition I'd filled with notes during my final literature class at university. A week later, Jace showed up with a used copy, similar in edition. Inside was a single post-it note. For the girl who deserves more than second-hand love. My throat tightened when I saw it. I didn't cry. I didn't even thank him properly. I just stared at him. This boy who had grown into a man while I wasn't looking, and felt something shift inside me. That night he took me to a rooftop park above the city. It wasn't fancy, just a hidden green space atop an office complex, the kind of place most people didn't know existed. The wind was soft, the city lights glowed beneath us, and Jace laid out a blanket like he'd done it 100 times. I used to come here when I was younger, he said, stretching out beside me. After fights with my mom. Or when I wanted to feel big enough to swallow the skyline. You were always dramatic, I said gently. He smirked. Still am. We lay there in silence for a while, the kind that feels like a blanket instead of a wall. Then suddenly he turned to me. You're still in love with him? The question wasn't accusatory. Just honest. I didn't flinch. No, I said. But I still hate what he made me become. Jace nodded slowly. I hated that version of me, I admitted. So desperate to be enough. So willing to accept crumbs. You're not that girl anymore, he said quietly. How do you know? Because that girl would have blocked my number by now, he teased. I laughed and he smiled. The tension between us was palpable now, like silk stretched too tight. My heart beat too loudly in the quiet. Then he said, "Can I kiss you?" No games. Just a question. Simple. Steady. Consensual. And in that moment everything old inside me, all the parts still aching, still cracked, quieted. "Yes," I whispered. He leaned in slowly like I might vanish. His lips brushed mine once. Tentative. Then again more certain. His hand cupped the side of my face, thumb grazing my cheek. I let my eyes close. I let myself feel it. Not a kiss built on need or apology. Not an act of erasure or comparison. Just a kiss that said, "I see you." When he finally pulled back, he didn't speak. He didn't need to. As neither did I. I thought about that kiss the entire drive home. And again in the shower. And again when I lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling and wondering how something so quiet could echo so loudly. The next morning he sent a photo of a mug with a lipstick stain. "Jace, should I keep this as a trophy or wash it and pretend I'm chill?" "Me wash it. You're not that cool." "Jace, fair." I didn't know where we were headed. I didn't know if I was ready for anything real. But I knew this. With Jace I didn't feel like a wound. I felt like a woman again. And for the first time in a long, long while. That was enough. There's something disorienting about falling for someone slowly. It doesn't feel like crashing into a thunderstorm the way it did with Grayson. There's no lightning or sharp edges or waiting for the other shoe to drop. With Jace it was rain on windows. Steady. Unapologetic. The kind that doesn't demand your attention. It simply keeps falling until you realize your entire world is quietly soaked in it. We had fallen into a rhythm. We weren't official, whatever that meant anymore, but he was in my life daily. Texts in the morning. Voice notes at lunch. Surprise coffee drop-offs. Midnight walks when my insomnia refused to let me be. And he never asked for anything. He just showed up. It was so terrifyingly gentle that I nearly ruined it twice just trying to find the flaws. One Thursday evening I stopped by his place unannounced. He answered the door in an apron, shirtless underneath, flowers smudged across his collarbone. My brain stalled. "Don't say it," he warned, clearly flustered. "You bake topless?" I asked. "I overestimated my ventilation system," he muttered, turning pink. I sat at the kitchen counter while he pulled bread from the oven and grumbled about yeast. Somehow it was the sexiest thing I'd ever witnessed. "Want to stay for dinner?" he asked. "Only if you wear gloves with that sourdough," I teased. He rolled his eyes, but the smile never left his face. That weekend I learned his birthday was coming up. "What do you want?" I asked. "You," he said without hesitation. Then sheepishly, "I mean, nothing big. Just maybe time. And cake. Lots of cake." I pretended not to blush. Still, I couldn't ignore the urge bubbling under my skin. The need to do something. Give him something that meant more than words. Something lasting. That's how I ended up at the Crosswood Foundation's annual charity auction the night before his birthday. It was held in a glass-domed atrium, chandeliers catching light like floating stars. Guests in velvet and silk sipped champagne while flipping through glossy auction catalogs. I wore a tailored ivory pantsuit and heels that hurt with every step, because power has a price. I hadn't planned to bid. I came to browse, maybe make a donation and leave. But then I saw it. Lot 27. A limited edition handcrafted men's watch. Black onyx dial. Platinum detailing. Understated. Elegant. Exactly Jace. Bidding started at 80,000. I hesitated. Then raised my paddle. It was a blur from there. Back and forth bidding. A man in a navy suit challenged me multiple times. I didn't back down. I knew it was excessive. Jace would probably be horrified. But I didn't care. I wasn't trying to impress him. I just wanted to give him something that said, "You matter. I see you. I choose you." My final bid cleared 6 figures. The gavel dropped. And that's when I heard someone say my name. Camilla West. I turned. Wendell Mason. Of course. He was part of Grayson's old circle. Not cruel, not close either, just observant enough to make things inconvenient. "Didn't expect to see you here," he said, eyeing the number on my paddle. "You bid big." I smiled politely. "It's for someone important." His brow lifted. "Grayson." I didn't answer. But the damage was already done. The next morning, Wendell told Grayson everything. About the watch. About the bidding war. About how determined I looked. Grayson, I later heard, had been seated at some rooftop cigar lounge when the news reached him. He took a long drag from his Cuban, smiled like he'd just been told I carved his name into my skin and said, "All right. 3 days. I'll get her back." 3 days. As if I were a subscription renewal. As if his arrogance could just rewind everything. He leaned back in his chair and murmured, "She's just giving me an excuse to reach out." And Wendell, ever the observer, didn't correct him. Meanwhile, I was at home, barefoot, still in pajamas, wrapping the watch box carefully with navy ribbon and second-guessing everything. Would Jace think it was too much? Would he pull away? Would I scare him off by caring too much too fast? But when I walked into his birthday dinner that night, gift in hand, and saw the way his face lit up, as if I were the only person in the room, all my nerves dissolved. He took the box with both hands almost reverently and asked, "Do I open this now?" "Only if you want to risk crying in public," I said. He laughed, then opened it anyway. His mouth parted slightly when he saw the watch. Then he looked up at me, eyes wide, voice quiet. "Camilla, this is..." I waited for him to tell me I shouldn't have. Instead, he just reached out and pulled me into a hug. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't possessive. It was soft, warm, and real. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice almost breaking. "No one's ever given me something like this." I rested my cheek against his shoulder and whispered back, "You've never let anyone." That night, when he walked me back to my car, he held my hand like it was the only thing keeping him grounded. And when we said goodnight, his lips brushed my forehead, not rushed, not distracted, just a quiet moment of reverence. I drove home smiling, not knowing that across the city Grayson Hale was plotting his comeback with the same confidence he once used to dismiss my tears. But this time, he had no idea how much he no longer mattered. Some nights feel heavy before they even begin. That evening, the air was unusually still. The sky was a flat canvas of dusk, clouds painted in muted blues and soft grays. I stood in front of my bedroom mirror, smoothing down the delicate pink bodice of my dress, a soft fishtail silhouette that hugged my frame and fell just past my knees. The gift, Jace's watch, was already packed in navy wrapping, a matching envelope tucked inside with a handwritten note. Something short. Something sincere. I didn't plan on staying long at the party. Just show up, hand him the gift, make a toast if I had to, then vanish before the emotional noise got too loud. But of course fate had other plans. The venue was tucked into the upper floor of a private social club called Champs. Discreet. Members only. The kind of place people like Grayson used to drag me to, marble floors, dark wood panels, staff that remembered your drink by the second visit. I stepped off the elevator and adjusted my coat, clutching the gift bag tighter. As I turned down the hallway toward the private rooms, I passed a set of doors that hadn't closed all the way. Voices drifted out. Low, familiar male. I slowed. Then I heard it. Guess who I saw at the auction? Someone said, "Wendell, Grayson's friend." Grayson's voice followed, casual. "Who?" "Camilla. Bid on a watch. Spent over 100 grand. Pretty sure it was for you." I froze. There was a pause. Then a chuckle, the one I knew too well. Confident, smooth, maddening. "She's really pulling all the stops, huh?" Grayson said. "That's classic Camilla. Proud, but always waiting to be rescued." My grip on the gift bag tightened. "She obviously still likes you," Wendell added. "You think she's trying to get your attention?" "She's just playing her usual game," Grayson said lazily. "This is just a Cold War. 3 months of no contact? He's testing me. Give it another 3 days, I'll have her back." Silence. Then laughter. I couldn't move. Not because I believed him, but because part of me, a part one thought I'd buried, was furious he still believed he owned the story of me. I backed away slowly. Didn't slam the door. Didn't scream. Didn't confront him. I just walked. Quietly. Silently. Down the hall. Toward the other private room. The one where Jace's name was written in delicate gold on the doorplate. I didn't look back. I wouldn't give Grayson Hale the satisfaction of a reaction. Not this time. Jace's party was the opposite of what I'd just heard. Warm. Loud, but in the affectionate, messy way families are. Laughter burst out from one corner, music played low over portable speakers, and the scent of grilled ribs and spiced cake filled the room. The moment I stepped in, a girl wearing a sequin dress gasped. "You must be Camilla." Before I could answer, she looped her arm around mine and pulled me into the crowd. I met his friends, none older than 25, full of energy, sharp eyeliner, and open hearts. Some were polished, some chaotic, some visibly shy. But all of them looked at me not with judgment or smug recognition, but with curiosity. Genuine warmth. Not performance. One of the girls leaned in, eyes wide. "Jay said you're a lawyer. Is it true you once made a client cry before trial?" I laughed. He was a terrible liar. I had to get it out of his system. They cheered. A boy with pink hair offered me a virgin cocktail with a lemon wedge smiley face drawn on the napkin. When Jace finally spotted me across the room, his entire expression softened. As he approached, I saw the moment he noticed my dress. His jaw tightened, but his smile remained. "You look," he exhaled, "illegal." I smirked. "So lucky you know a good lawyer." He grinned and kissed my cheek lightly. "Come meet my cousin before he gets too drunk to remember names." The rest of the evening moved like honey, sweet, slow, rich in moments. There was no showmanship in Jace's world. No games of power or peacocking or silent wars of status. He introduced me to his friends with pride. He danced with me when the tempo picked up, keeping one hand low on my back as if he couldn't bear to let go. He made a toast with his arm around my waist and ended it with a joke that had everyone laughing, but his eyes stayed on me the whole time. At some point during the evening, I slipped out onto the balcony for a breather. The air was cool against my skin and the city below glittered, loud and indifferent. I closed my eyes, and I thought about what I'd overheard. Grayson's words. His tone. His certainty. 3 days. As if I were a paused subscription he could renew with a swipe of his black card. I opened my clutch and pulled out my phone. Wrote a status. Married. Don't bother. I didn't post it yet, but I smiled at the thought. Back inside, Jace pulled me into a quieter corner near the end of the night. "I know this isn't your usual crowd," he said softly, "but thank you for being here." "You really think this isn't my crowd?" I raised a brow. He shrugged. "Your grace and structure. They're glitter and tequila." "I like glitter and tequila. You like control. And you're surprisingly hard to control," I shot back. His eyes sparkled. "You love it." I didn't deny it. Instead, I reached into my purse and handed him the watch box. "For you," I said. "And not because of anything you did. Just because of who you are." He opened it slowly. Smiled so wide I thought it might split his face. "Damn," he whispered. "This looks like something I'm not qualified to wear." "You're very qualified," I murmured. He leaned down. "Does this mean I get a birthday kiss?" I rolled my eyes, then kissed him anyway. Later, when we finally said goodnight, he whispered against my ear, "Whatever ghosts are still living inside you, Cam, let them watch. Because I'm not going anywhere." And somehow that single sentence did more to erase 3 years of pain than any closure Grayson ever tried to offer. There's a moment, right before something shifts, when the air changes. It's not always loud. Sometimes it's quiet, barely a heartbeat, like the world pausing to let you decide. Will you keep watching, or will you step in? That moment came near the end of Jace's birthday party. Everything until then had been warm, laughter-soaked and bright. I'd been passed around from one friend group to another like a treasured secret. "This is Camilla. She's the one. She's the lawyer. She's the reason Jace hasn't stopped smiling since April." I let myself enjoy it. Let myself believe I belonged in a world where no one knew my history with Grayson Hale. Until someone crossed the line. He came out of nowhere. A guest of a guest. Someone I hadn't been introduced to, clearly drunk and too tall for his own balance. His name may have been Darren or Damon. I didn't care. He wobbled toward me as I stepped aside to grab water, his smile already sticky. "You're Jace's girlfriend, right?" I smiled politely. "Friend." "Oh." He stepped closer. "That's a shame. You're stunning. Wasted on a kid like him." I raised a brow. "Excuse me. You like real men, don't you?" he slurred. "Not boys who still call their mom for lasagna recipes." I stepped back. He stepped forward. And before I could open my mouth, a blur passed my shoulder, fast, sharp, and controlled. Jace. His fist connected with the guy's jaw so cleanly I didn't even process the sound until after the man hit the wall. Chaos erupted. Someone shouted. A drink spilled. The man tried to stagger forward again, but Jace shoved him back hard. You don't talk to her. You don't look at her, he growled. That voice. I'd never heard it before. Oh, dangerous. No trace of the playful warmth I was used to. Made my heart trip. Not out of fear. Out of something much deeper. Something ancient and instinctive. Jace. I reached for him, fingers curling around his arm. He turned sharply, breathing heavy. And the moment he saw me, really saw me, everything in him softened. His fists unclenched. His jaw relaxed. He looked ashamed. I'm sorry, he murmured. He touched you. He didn't, I said gently. Not really. But he could've, he replied like that was enough. I didn't say anything. Just kept my hand on his arm. 10 minutes later we left the party. His friends didn't stop us. They offered nods and pats on the back but no judgment. They understood. Sometimes the best thing you can do is remove the thing you love from a room that doesn't deserve it. The drive was silent. Not awkward. Just charged. He kept glancing at me like he wanted to explain himself but didn't know how. I broke the silence first. You didn't have to hit him. I know. But you did. He nodded. Because of me? He turned at a red light. Because of how he looked at you. Like you were a game. A trophy. I couldn't take it. No one had ever defended me like that before. Grayson used to smooth over public tension with charm and politics. If someone insulted me, he'd deflect with a joke. Later he'd say, you have to let things go. Don't embarrass yourself. Jace didn't let anything go. He made it known, I was not to be touched. Not to be spoken to like that. Not on his watch. It was reckless. It was raw. And it made me feel something I hadn't in years. But he pulled into my driveway. Cut the engine. Neither of us moved. Then he turned to me, expression unreadable. I know I overreacted. You didn't, I said softly. He studied my face. You're not afraid of me? Afraid. I blinked. You think that's what this is? He looked away. Sometimes I feel like I've been holding back around you. Trying not to scare you away. But the truth is, Camilla, when I care, I care. It's not casual. It's not cool. It's intense. I leaned forward, voice low. Then stop holding back. He froze. His eyes snapped to mine. Say it again, he whispered. Stop. Holding. Back. That's when he moved. Fast. Sure. His hand found my face as he kissed me, harder than before, not hungry but certain. Like he finally had permission. Like all the quiet restraint he'd kept hidden now rushed to the surface. My back hit the passenger door as his mouth found mine again. Lips warm, breath heavy. His other hand hovered, never forcing, just waiting. I pulled back just enough to look at him. Inside, I said. He hesitated. You sure? I nodded. Come inside. We barely made it to the hallway. His jacket was gone. My heels kicked off. He held me like he couldn't decide where to touch first, so he touched everything gently. But there was no rush. When we reached the edge of my bed, he paused. Looked at me like I was something holy. I'm not here for a moment, Camilla, he whispered. I'm here because I don't want a version of you. I want you. All of it. And for the first time in so long, I believed someone. What followed wasn't about lust. It wasn't about proving something or burying pain. It was about being seen, fully, openly, and being wanted anyway. When we finally collapsed against the sheets, breathless and quiet, he tucked my hair behind my ear and kissed my shoulder like it was the only prayer he knew. I lay there beside him, his chest rising and falling under my hand, and thought, This is what it's supposed to feel like. Not fireworks. Not fear. Just warmth that stays. It started with a message. A single text. No greeting. No pleasantries. Just a time and a place. Maison Étoile. 2 p.m. tomorrow. Just us. Lena. I stared at it for a long time. Deleted it once. Reread it when it reappeared in my iCloud sync. Then I sat with the question longer than it deserved. Why no? Why me? I didn't need to ask how she got my number. She'd always had it. Like women like her always have everything quietly tucked into the folds of their influence. Lena had been more than Grayson's new flame. She'd been his upgrade. His second act. The elegant, media-trained perfection he replaced me with. No scars, no courtroom wit, no hard-earned cynicism. Just glamour. softness, the illusion of effortlessness. But now, 3 months later, she wanted a conversation. So I gave it to her. Maison Etoile was a soft white blur of marble floors, fresh lilies, and long-stemmed wine glasses that made even silence sound expensive. She was already there when I arrived, seated at the edge of a terrace table, legs crossed, sunglasses perched atop her head like a crown. She stood when she saw me, smile pristine. "Camilla," she purred. "You look surprisingly rested." I smiled tightly. "And you look exactly like the PR team wants you to." Her lashes fluttered, but the smile didn't crack. We sat. She gestured for the server, ordered a champagne spritzer with lavender syrup, then turned to me like we were old sorority sisters catching up on harmless gossip. "I wasn't sure you'd come," she said. "Then why did you text?" She paused. "Because I know how hard it is to pretend you've moved on when you haven't." I raised an eyebrow. "Projecting, are we?" She laughed softly, head tilted. "No. I just remember how obsessed you were. I thought, maybe you'd want closure." Closure. That old trick. She didn't come for closure. He came to win. "I heard about the watch," Lena said casually. "The one you bid on. For the new guy." "Jace," I corrected. "Oh right, she smiled. "The younger one." Her voice laced with sugar. Then silence. I let it stretch. She sipped her drink. "So, rebound or charity project?" I blinked once. "You have 2 minutes left to say what you came to say," I told her. "Use them wisely." She tilted her head, pretending to be amused, but her fingers curled slightly around her glass. "Grayson told me he's planning something," she said finally. I didn't flinch. She leaned in, voice lowering. "He says he's going to win you back. That everything since the breakup has been a mistake. That you're still his." Her words dropped like little stones, hoping to chip at whatever calm I was wearing. "He's planning something big," she added. "Something public. Grand." "I'm sure he is," I said coolly. "You're not even going to ask what it is?" "No need." "Why not?" "Because I don't care." She blinked, visibly caught off guard. "I just thought you'd want a warning. You know, woman to woman." "That would require both of us being women," I replied, lifting my glass. "Not competitors." Lena stiffened. "I'm trying to be kind." "No," I said, meeting her gaze. "You're trying to rattle me. To remind me that you're younger, newer, shinier. You came here to feel taller by standing over the version of me that used to need him." Her smile faltered. "But here's the thing, Lena," I continued, my voice soft but sharp. "I'm not that version anymore. I'm not the girl who cried over men who treated me like footnotes. And I'm definitely not the woman who competes with someone who traded love for leverage." She stared. I leaned back. "So if you came here looking for a moment, a crack, you wasted your outfit." Her cheeks flushed just barely. Then too quickly she stood. "Grayson was right," she muttered. "You are cold." "No," I said. "I'm just done warming people who bring nothing but frostbite." I didn't finish my drink. Didn't stay for dessert. I left her at the table, alone, beautiful and empty-handed. Outside, the sky was heavy with pre-summer heat. I took off my coat and let the sun touch the bare skin at my collarbones. Grayson was planning something. Something loud. Something cinematic. Of course he was. Because that's what men like him do when they lose control. They stage productions. But this time I wouldn't be waiting in the wings. I'd be center stage, already rewritten in a story where he no longer had a name. There are moments in life that you can feel building long before they arrive. Like pressure in the air before a storm. A silence so deliberate, it's only pretending to be still. That was how the day felt. I had been invited to the Whitmore and Hale Foundation's annual awards dinner. A night for elite donors and benefactors to parade their wealth beneath a thin veil of philanthropy. Normally I wouldn't attend. But I donated quietly under my firm's name, and this year my team insisted I make an appearance. "You'll only have to stay an hour," my assistant promised. Smile, sip champagne, shake 2 hands, then ghost. I almost believed her. Until I saw my name listed beside Grayson Hale's on the event pamphlet. Guest of honor. Camilla West Eskew, introduction by Grayson Hale. I blinked. My fingers curled around the printed cardstock like it had insulted me. This wasn't coincidence. This was coordination. A play. A final act in a drama I didn't audition for. I should have left. Should have turned around and walked right out of the ballroom with its golden arches and softly glowing chandeliers. But I didn't. Because something in me, the part he used to shatter and reshape at will, wanted to watch him fail at this too. Wanted to burn the script he had written and read my own lines instead. Jace had offered to come with me that night. I told him no. This isn't your fight, I said softly. He nodded, brushing his thumb across my cheek. But I'll be waiting when it's done. And so I walked in alone, wearing a steel gray gown that caught the light like armor. No jewelry. No theatrics. Just sharp lines and sharper silence. The speeches droned on. A woman with a doctorate in childhood trauma. A donor from a hedge fund who somehow made his tax evasion sound noble. Light laughter, glasses clinking, false humility glowing beneath tailored suits. Then they called my name. I stood. Chin high. Steps steady. I walked to the podium as Grayson approached from the side to introduce me. He was already smiling. Microphone in hand. Audience waiting. He looked at me like I was the ending he had been writing in his mind since the day I left. Good evening, everyone, he began, his voice syrupy. Confident. I'm honored to stand beside a woman who has always stood for grace, strength, and resilience. Camilla and I, he paused for effect, have shared a lot of history. Some of it public. Some of it personal. Polite chuckles from the crowd. He turned toward me. We had our ups and downs like anyone. But I've learned that true connection doesn't fade. It deepens with time. I didn't blink. And tonight, he continued, stepping closer, I want to do something that should have happened a long time ago. Then he turned. Pulled out a velvet box. Dropped to one knee. Gasps echoed like wind in a cave. My lungs didn't move. Not because I was shocked, but because it was so predictable. So shallow. This wasn't for me. This was for every camera phone, every whispering guest, every business ally he wanted to impress with a grand gesture. A comeback story. He opened the box. A ring sparkled inside, oval cut, absurd, soulless. Camilla West, he said smoothly. Will you give us a second chance? Silence. Not reverent. Not romantic. Tense. Confused. Dozens of eyes turned to me, waiting. Wanting me to cry. To smile. To say yes. To complete the scene. Instead, I took the microphone from his hand. And I turned to the crowd. Ladies and gentlemen, I said, voice calm. Tonight has been full of surprises. But none greater than this attempt at rewriting history. A few nervous chuckles. I looked down at him, still kneeling, still smiling like this was foreplay. It wasn't. You see, I continued, this man left me. Publicly. Carelessly. For someone else. The air thickened. And when I picked myself up, when I chose silence over spectacle, he assumed it meant I was waiting. I turned back to the guest. Let me be clear, I wasn't. Gasps no. Whispers. I dropped my gaze to Grayson. And let me say something to you, Grayson, not for closure, not for pity, but for truth. He blinked. The smile twitched. You don't get to leave someone shattered and come back just because they've put the pieces back together prettier than you remembered. A hush fell over the room like snowfall. This isn't love, I said softly. This is ego. And I'm not your redemption arc. I set the microphone down, turned, and walked off the stage. People stared. Some awkwardly applauded. I didn't care, because I had never felt more free. I left the venue without looking back. Outside, the sky had darkened. The breeze tugged at the hem of my dress. And there, leaning against his car, hands tucked in his pockets, was Jace. He stepped forward as I approached. You okay? He asked quietly. I nodded. More than okay. He opened the passenger door. I slid in. As we pulled away from the curb, I glanced in the side mirror. Grayson was still kneeling, alone, the velvet box still open, the scene unfinished. And I smiled. Because I was no longer part of his story. Some storms come quietly. Not with thunder or chaos. Just a soft, steady unraveling. The kind that begins with a whisper, a glance, a silence that lingers longer than it should. That was how Grayson began to fall apart. Not in fire, but in echoes. The night after the gala, my phone rang 6 times. Grayson. No voicemail. No text. Just call after call. By morning there were 3 more. Then the text came. Can we talk? I didn't expect it to go like that. I just need 5 minutes. That's all. I didn't respond. Not because I was angry, but because I no longer needed to. The version of me who used to rehearse her replies, who would draft, delete, then draft again, heart racing, had disappeared. What was left was silence. Clean. Whole. Unapologetic. By the end of the week, Wendell messaged me. Grayson's not doing great. Just thought you should know. I didn't reply to that either. I wasn't heartless. I was healed. There's a difference. Rumors trickled through the legal grapevine. That Lena hadn't spoken to him since the gala. That investors were beginning to distance themselves, unsure whether his behavior had become a liability. That someone at Hale Investments overheard him shouting in his office. Something about losing everything for a woman who won't even pick up the damn phone. It was also predictable. He wasn't unraveling because he loved me. He was unraveling because he couldn't control me anymore. And for Grayson Hale, control had always been mistaken for affection. Meanwhile, my life grew quieter, and somehow fuller. Jace didn't press me to talk about the gala. He didn't need the play-by-play. Didn't need to be reminded that he wasn't the only man who had ever knelt in front of me. Instead, he brought me coffee. Ran his fingers through my hair while I read depositions late into the night. Let me rest my head on his chest and whispered, "You're safe now," like it was a spell he truly believed in. There was no high. No crash. Just him. Consistent. Steady. Warm. Like breath. Like light. One afternoon, I returned home from court to find him on my porch. He wasn't supposed to be there. He hadn't texted. He just showed up. With takeout in one hand and a bouquet of blue cornflowers in the other. "I googled your favorite," he said with a grin. "Got it right. I took the flowers. You got it perfect." He followed me into the kitchen, placed the food on the counter and said, "You haven't smiled in 2 days. Thought I'd fix that." "I'm fine." "I know." Still wanted to try. We ate on the couch. Barefoot. Music playing low. I told him about the hearing. The opposing counsel who couldn't pronounce amicus curiae. The judge's dry wit. The paralegal who kept stealing staplers. He laughed like it all mattered. Think I mattered. And I realized, somewhere between the egg rolls and the jasmine tea, that I hadn't thought about Grayson all day. Later that night, I sat cross-legged in bed, wrapped in one of Jace's hoodies, while he sat at my desk trying to fix my old laptop's fan. His hair was messy. He was muttering to himself. I think he called the machine a gremlin. I watched him. Really watched him. And the strangest thing happened. I felt peace. Not passion. Not butterflies. Just stillness. The kind of stillness that tells you you're home. "Jace," I said quietly. He looked up. Thank you." He blinked. "For fixing your dying laptop?" "No," I smiled. "For being here. And not asking for anything in return." He stood, crossed the room and kissed my forehead. "I'm not here to be thanked, Camilla," he said. "I'm here because you deserve better than people who only loved the broken parts of you." I felt tears rise, not from sadness but from release. Then he pulled me into his arms and held me like the war was over. Because, in a way, it was. Grayson tried one last time. A letter. Hand-delivered. Thick ivory envelope. My name written in ink he probably paid someone else to make look effortless. I didn't open it. I burned it. Watched the edges curl into ash in the small fireplace on my patio. Not out of vengeance. Not out of bitterness. But because I didn't need his words anymore. I had found my own. 1 week later I walked into court with my head held high. Not because I was trying to prove anything. But because I no longer had anything to prove. And when I won the case that afternoon, a difficult property dispute that my entire team had lost sleep over, I didn't celebrate with champagne. I celebrated with Jace. We sat at a rooftop bar overlooking the city, shoes off, our feet dangling from the edge of a velvet booth. He handed me a single glass of wine and said, "To you. For finishing the story on your own terms." I clinked my glass to his. And whispered, "To beginnings." The lake house was exactly the same. That was the strangest part. The deck still creaked in the same places. The trees still swayed in lazy rhythm along the water. Even the old tire swing hung from the same branch, its rope fraying but unbroken. But I wasn't the same. And that made all the difference. I parked the car just outside the gate, the gravel crunching beneath my tires. I hadn't told anyone I was coming. Not even Jace. This was something I had to do alone. Closure isn't a ceremony. It's not always about confrontation or clarity. Sometimes it's just standing where you once shattered and realizing you're not glass anymore. The memory came easily as if it had been waiting for me. Grayson standing in that circle of rich boys and louder girls. Lena lip-glossed and glowing, declaring her dare. His hands on her waist. The kiss. The laughter. My silence. But today the air was still. And I could breathe. I walked out to the dock. The same dock where I'd stood soaking in the rain that night, shattered. Now I stood dry. Whole. I sat down slowly at the edge, my heels dangling over the water. My phone buzzed once, a calendar alert. Court in 2 days. The world still moved. I unlocked it. Scrolled through my old photos. Paused on one. A picture of Grayson and me at this very lake. His arm around my shoulder. My smile too wide to be real. I stared at it for a long moment. Then hit delete. No fanfare. No dramatics. Just gone. I didn't cry. Didn't sigh. Just tucked the phone away and leaned back on my elbows, face turned toward the sky. And that's when I heard the car door slam. Footsteps. I didn't move. Thought you might be here, Jace's voice said behind me. I turned, shielding my eyes from the sun. He was holding 2 iced coffees and a paper bag of pastries. I didn't tell you, I said softly. You didn't have to. He walked toward me, crouched beside the dock and held out the coffee. I know your face. I smiled. That's dangerously romantic. I'm dangerously committed. He sat beside me. And we stayed like that. Saying nothing. Just watching the lake ripple like it always had. But somehow it looked different. You okay? He asked finally. More than okay. He nodded. Good. Because you don't owe this place anything. I know. I glanced over. I didn't come for it. I came for me. He smiled at that. You always were the main character. Took you long enough to realize it. I laughed. You're impossible. I'm patient. Different sin. We sat there for what felt like hours, legs brushing, coffee slowly drained. Then I turned to him. I'm scared, I admitted. He blinked. Of what? Of being happy. He didn't flinch. Want to know a secret? He said. I am too. I looked at him. Really? Sure. Loving someone who's been broken. That's hard. Not because they're fragile, but because they're strong enough to walk away again if you don't protect what they rebuilt. Silence. He reached for my hand. You don't have to promise me forever, Camilla. Just promise me you won't run the first time things aren't perfect. I gripped his hand tighter. I promise. And I promise to keep showing up. Even when you don't ask. We didn't kiss. Not right away. We just sat there, fingers entwined, hearts quiet, watching the lake reflect the soft bruising blue of the sky. And for once there was no past chasing me. No ghost of Grayson whispering that I was too cold, too difficult, too much. Just this. A future that felt calm. A man who stayed. And a version of me I didn't want to run from anymore. Later that evening, as the sun sank into the water and turned the trees gold, Jace pulled me into a quiet embrace. He didn't ask me what I wanted next. He just whispered, whatever it is, I'm in. And for the first time I believed a man not because of what he said, but because of how silent the truth felt when he said it. Like peace. Like healing. Like home. The end.